Hi, I'm here today to share the results of a recent experiment I conducted on myself, answering the question of whether it is possible to eat potatoes on a ketogenic diet. A little bit of background on me. My name's Jocelyn. I'm 35. I've been doing CrossFit for more than 10 years, and I've been following a cyclic ketogenic diet for 2 years. I've been documenting what that's like and various experiments that I conduct on myself on an Instagram account called The Keto Athlete, and making little videos like this to share the results. So a little bit of background here. What is resistant starch? Why do we care? Resistant starch, long chains of glucose molecules stuck together in a way that resists digestion through the small intestine. They make it through to the large intestine, where they are fuel for the bacteria that live in your guts. They are fermented by your gut bacteria into a short chain fatty acid called butyrate. Why would anybody care? Who cares about that? Well, butyrate is the preferred fuel source for the cells that line your colon cells of your large intestine. Any butyrate that's not used by the colon cells makes its way into the bloodstream, where it can have widespread effects throughout the body, and such things like reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, regulating blood sugar, and reducing appetite. So all kinds of possible benefits. Where did this idea come from? Now, this is a interview with Chris Kresser on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.
Starch. Or you can bake a white potato, for example, and then let it cool. And that cooling process is what forms the resistant starch. And this is what's really interesting. You know, most people think of potatoes as something that would spike their blood sugar because they have a lot of carbohydrate. But when you cook and cool the potato, it won't have that effect because the resistant starch, you can't absorb and break that into glucose.
Whoa.
So
when you cool a potato, it's better for you.
Yeah. So that like a cold potato salad would actually not have the same effect on your blood sugar as eating a warm baked potato that you just cooked.
Wow. That's
In fact,
crazy.
Have you heard of the potato hack?
No.
So that seemed interesting to me, and it certainly seemed worth testing. I like potatoes. I thought if there's a way to incorporate potato salad into a ketogenic diet, I'd be all for it. So here's the experiment, 3 days. I did it during a time that I was wearing a Freestyle Libre continuous glucose monitor implant in my arm to make the blood glucose measurements nice and easy. It's a little sensor that's embedded into your arm, and you can read it with a scanner or now with your cell phone. I was also using a Freestyle Precision Neo to do the finger pricks to measure blood ketones, the beta hydroxybutyrate. So here's what we had. I made on the first day 3 portions of potatoes that were 30 grams of net carbohydrates each. So that's this little plate. There's nothing else on them, just salt and pepper. So day 1 is the baseline where I ate the potatoes, cooked, eaten warm, ate them fresh. So here's the baseline. This is my blood sugar prior to eating the potatoes, a nice normal 4.4 millimolars. This is at the 1 hour mark after eating the potato. So we see this like big spike. And this is only a 30-gram portion of carbohydrate. This is not a ridiculous amount of carbs. And then at the 2 hour mark, we see this overcorrection that is very characteristic of these kinds of intakes of carbohydrate, where the insulin has overcorrected and now my blood sugar is lower than when I started, which is what gives you that hunger at the 2 hour mark. So day 2, same portion of potatoes. They were cooked on day 1. Now they've been cooled for 24 hours. I'm eating them on day 2 under the same conditions. Nothing on them except for salt and pepper. So this is my blood sugar prior to. So we have 4.7 millimolars, nice and normal. This is my blood ketone level prior to eating the potatoes. So at 1 millimolar, that's like a nice level of nutritional ketosis. So in ketosis prior to eating the potatoes. At the 1 hour mark, we see less of a blood sugar spike. It only goes up to 6, which is kind of in line with what Chris Kresser was suggesting in the video. And at the 2 hour mark, 4.8 millimolar, so basically back to where I started without that overcorrection that we saw on the first day. But my ketone levels are down to 0.3, so no longer in nutritional ketosis. So we can't measure insulin directly in a home assay, but we can measure blood glucose and blood ketones. So we're sort of triangulating to estimate what happened. And what this represents is that it took a fair amount of insulin to correct my blood sugar and keep it normal. So if only looking at the blood sugar, you go, yeah, cool, nice and normal. But as insulin and ketones are counter-regulatory, if the ketones went down, that means that the insulin had to go up quite a bit in order to keep that blood sugar at a nice stable level. And then this is day 3. So now I cooked the potatoes on day 1. They were cooled until day 2. I heated them up again on day 2, and now they've been cooled another 24 hours. So cooked and cooled twice, which according to the video is supposed to create more resistant starch every time that they're cooked and cooled. So that's my blood sugar level before, 4.2 millimolars. This is my ketone level prior to eating the potatoes. It's only at 0.5, which is just barely, that's the minimum threshold for being considered in ketosis. It's not as high as the second day, but probably because I've been eating potatoes for 3 days in a row by this point. At the 1 hour mark, now this is interesting, my blood sugar went up much higher than it did on day 2. So even though they've been cooked and cooled twice, we're seeing more of a blood sugar increase, which is not what I would have expected. And then at the 2 hour mark, back to normal, 4.5 millimolars. And then the ketones here again, not in ketosis. So there was obviously a rush of insulin required to deal with the carbohydrate that came in. So just to recap, day 1, the baseline when they were just cooked and eaten warm, we see that big blood sugar spike and the overcorrection at the 2 hour mark. Cooked and cooled once, we see less of the blood sugar spike and we see less of the overcorrection, which is a good thing, which is better. And then cooked and cooled twice, we see a higher blood sugar spike and then not the overcorrection like we saw on the first day. Now, one of the things that was interesting to me about this was the 2 hour period between eating the potatoes and taking that 2 hour blood sugar measurement. I wasn't eating anything else, so there wasn't anything interfering, but I was so hungry in those 2 hours. It was really hard for me to not eat anything. I kept wanting to just wander into the kitchen and dig through the cupboards in this like compulsive kind of way that I never have that kind of feeling. I haven't had that feeling since I've been keto adapted, so for the last 2 years. So that 30 gram of carbohydrate intake really triggered this like compulsive craving behavior in me, which I haven't experienced in a long time. And it was very unpleasant. I don't like that feeling at all. And by the 3rd day, I was just craving sweets and carbohydrates enough that I made some keto cookies with some erythritol, which I don't normally even want to eat that kind of stuff, but I just was craving something sweet enough that I made some keto treats and then kind of realized what I was doing and went, oh, like I hate feeling like that. I don't like that feeling at all. So in the end, can I eat potatoes on a ketogenic diet? The answer is no. It didn't work out. I was not able to stay in ketosis no matter how many times the potatoes were cooked and cooled. It didn't work out.